Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining today's session, AI as a Game Changer. Just for your information, this is the second episode in our Baker Tilly Leadership Series. If you want the previous one with Laure Mounier from Baker Tilly, France, please connect with SC L&D or check ASA World or connect with Rhythm in the Enterprise Strategy team, and we will get you a copy of the recording if you cannot find the previous one. The recording of this session will also be put online on ASA World. Now, in the accounting industry, we're seeing how artificial intelligence is transforming everything we do, from routine tasks to complex analysis. So today, we're very fortunate to have Brett here from Pitcher Partners, who's going to help us understand both the opportunities as well as the challenges ahead. So let me introduce Brett Johnson, the Chief Information Officer at Pitcher Partners. This is our Australian member firm. Brett is at the forefront of AI implementation in professional services. He has very, very deep experience in technology and digital transformation, and this gives him a very unique perspective into how to ethically and effectively integrate AI tools and drive innovation and efficiency within all of our firms. I'm also very pleased to introduce our very own Shri Krishna Dixit, the Head of Cybersecurity Services at Baker Tilly ASA India. For those of you that don't already know, Shri, along with Pankaj Aneja and the tax team, are leading our own entry into AI. So today we're going to look at how artificial intelligence is not just a technological shift, but a very strategic one. So please join me in giving a warm welcome to our speakers, Brett Johnson and Shri Krishna Dixit. Now, a few housekeeping tips. Everyone will be on listen-only mode. We're going to take a few questions at the end of the session. If you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A box and we will take them up at the end of the session. Over to you, Shri.
Thanks, Kim. While history of AI stretches back decades or centuries, probably it started somewhere in 1960s, the recent leaps towards forward in hardware, software, and data processing have accelerated AI's development. AI today is everywhere, be it a big tech company, small tech company, motion pictures, financial markets, sports, education sector, farming, even consulting companies. Rather, it is in our pockets today. Even phones are embedded with AI features. In fact, it is reasonable to assume that if you aren't already using AI, then something is wrong. Brett shall share some ideas how he is using AI within Pitcher Partners and supporting Baker Tilly network firms, which shall be useful to us. Over to you, Brett.
Thank you, Shri, and thank you for the opportunity to talk to you all today. I do love talking about AI, and I've got a presentation here today that is based off a version I shared at the Baker Tilly Asia Pacific Conference in the Philippines. As Kim said, I'm the CIO at Pitcher Partners in Melbourne, but I'm also part of the Baker Tilly Global Technology Committee, and I chair the AI and Automation Focus Group for Baker Tilly. So today I want to talk to you about how we see AI as a game changer and talk to you about where we're seeing it transform value for Baker Tilly and in professional services. But I just want to take you on a little bit of a journey, and let me just make sure that works. So this picture here is where I had my first job back in 1988. And for those of you that may go back some time, in this job as an IT technician, we did not have email, we did not have the internet, and we were just starting to play with spreadsheets. And I remember when we were introducing spreadsheets, which are now obviously have been transformational and we all use them regularly. When we first tried to introduce a spreadsheet in this organization, we had an enormous amount of reluctance. So in the last 30 odd years, I've seen the introduction of email and views on what it would do to transform the world, the internet, cloud computing, and so on. And here we are today talking about AI. And I guess part of my story about looking at those previous technologies is at some point in time, all of those technologies were really hyped about being very transformational and changing the world. And to some extent, they all have, but but it was not quite how we expected. And I do believe AI is going to be a little bit like that. And I hope to probably share my thoughts on that as I go through this presentation. I am going to start off with a little bit of a discussion around the definitions and how we describe AI. Talk about how talk about the view as to whether AI is going to transform value, and assuming it will, how firms across Baker Tilly are getting ready, and lean into a little bit about where to start. And then I can talk about what we're doing and what other firms in the Baker Tilly network are doing with AI and automation, because I think they go together as a very good pair. So to start with, there's a couple of points on this slide I want to talk to, and Sri covered this really, really nicely. AI has been around a very long time. If you buy from Amazon or you watch Netflix or you watch YouTube, those providers have been using a version of artificial intelligence based on machine learning for many, many years. What has sparked this evolution rather than a revolution, I think, is really the launch of ChatGPT a few years back now, and the rise in generative AI that we're all seeing and no doubt all using. And I've got some stats which assume the vast majority of us are using it in some way or another, as Sri also mentioned. What we're seeing more recently, though, is this concept of AI agents, which are systems that are operating more autonomously with specific goals. But I do believe the value of these agents is when we have a human steering them. And that's why I like the term Microsoft has coined about co-pilots as opposed to autopilots. And really where I think we're going to see AI really shine is when we combine AI and automation, and Gartner framed this term intelligent automation, which is the combination of robotic process automation with AI agents combined together to develop some really rich agents that we as humans steer and embrace and drive to help us in our work. Now, that's okay to define those, but AI is still a very broad term. So in Baker Tilly, through our AI automation and focus group, we talk to AI in 3 broad categories, and these might change, but this is where we've landed at the moment because AI means so many things to so many different people. So when we talk about AI, the categories we talk about is we're seeing AI embedded in line of business applications, and this might be within, you know, if you use Xero as an accounting platform, it's got JAX, and its advancements of AI incorporated in that system is growing. If you use Caseware Cloud, or we're seeing that Caseware as a provider is developing their AI strategy and embedding that in their working paper solution. So we're seeing a ramp up of AI just being delivered as a component within our everyday systems. And that's amazing, and we should look to leverage that with some caution. In the middle, we're seeing more and more firms building custom solutions which combine AI, machine learning, and automations. And this is where we're seeing quite a lot of progress more recently. And I think we're seeing it more recently because of a couple of factors. The AI technology is getting cheaper. It's getting more proficient. There's the access to it is becoming easier. And we've just learned a whole lot about these tools, and therefore it's made our ability to embrace these easier than it used to be. And then the third category is really what we're calling co-pilots, and across the Baker Tilly network, we have a great adoption of both the Microsoft Copilot stack and the ChatGPT Enterprise stack, and we've even got some firms embracing both. I don't really think it matters which one we use. It's more important that we are using these than necessarily which one. So to set the scene for some of our conversations, that's how we are breaking up how we see the application of AI across Baker Tilly. So a question I get asked, and there's starting to see a lot of research about this, is AI actually transforming value creation? And the research I'm seeing and reading is absolutely yes. The degrees at which it's being realized depends and varies from a little bit to a medium amount. I don't believe we're seeing enormous transformation of whole services or businesses. I don't think that's where we're going to see the value. I think the value of these tools is in the hands of our people being able to use these through everyday processes. But the proposition or the hypothesis for today is that AI and automation will transform value, and we're seeing that, and support and enhance service delivery for our firms, and more importantly, for our clients. So that is the thinking, and that is the hypothesis that we are working from in Baker Tilly. What's making that hard, though, is that there is an enormous amount of hype, and I've been in tech for over 35 years, and as I said at the start, I've seen email, I've seen cloud computing, I've seen blockchain, I've seen lots of these technologies that come with an enormous amount of hype, and not all of them have been here to stay. AI, though, is setting a new record for the amount of hype that we're seeing, but I also believe it's absolutely here to stay. And that's been proven already, I believe, through what I'm seeing and what you're no doubt seeing in the practical take-up of many of these solutions. But it is still early days. And some of you might be aware of the Gartner hype cycle, which is a view that says when there's a new technology, there's a peak of inflated expectations, and then at some point it comes crashing down, and there's what they call the trough of disillusionment before we go up the slope of enlightenment and we get to the plateau of productivity. I actually met with Gartner this week, and I showed them my version of this chart for AI, and they thought it was funny, because what I'm trying to say here is I haven't seen hype quite as big as it is in AI, and I also think the trough of disillusionment won't be as low, because the journey from this peak of hype through to delivery is a lot flatter than I believe it's been for other technologies. I think the ability to deliver more quickly is a really positive. However, that hype getting out of control is not great necessarily, and something to be careful of. And one of those areas where that is generating the hype is that this environment is moving very, very fast. The AI technologies are growing very, very quickly. There's new versions of models all the time. ChatGPT has gone from version 1, which wasn't very public, to 2.5 to 3 to different versions of 4, and now GPT-5 is available. And I heard an interview with Sam Altman talking about GPT-7, so they've already got plans. But to give you an idea, there's a website called Hugging Face, which is a great repository of all things AI. Now, I've been going to this website for the past 12 to 18 months, and that number in the middle shows you the number of AI models that are available for you to download. And it's a very large number, but a month ago, this was at 1.6 million, and it's already at 2 million. And these models will do a range of things, but these are all downloadable models that either do vision or text or questions or otherwise. But the rate at which these models are growing is extraordinary. And that's something we can leverage and make use of. But it's also part of what's driving the hype, is this rapid evolution and rapid change, which is a positive thing. We just have to be very cautious about the fact that we're not sure exactly where this is going, but that doesn't mean we don't embrace it, and embrace it now. And when we look at some of the research, and I'll probably flick through this quickly, because 6 months ago, some of this research was, oh, wow, this is amazing. But a lot of this, I'm hoping that many of you on the call today will resonate with, and that is Microsoft had some research that says 29% of all of us on the call are using generative AI several times a week, and we're saving up to 30 minutes a day. Now, sometimes when I talk to people about this, they go, 30 minutes a day, you mean AI in all its hype is only saving you 30 minutes a day? And I say, yeah, but 30 minutes a day, that's fantastic, right? And particularly when we look at tools like Copilot or ChatGPT, for me, that's a really fantastic return on investment. And this is just the start. We're still learning how to use these tools as personal assistants. So I think that's a really fantastic piece of data that's only going to get better. Another piece of research here showed that in an organization in Denmark, more than half the staff are using ChatGPT daily. This was an interesting bit of research that analysed how long it took staff in this company to write documents. And what it found is writing documents without AI took 3 times as long. So using Copilot as an example to help you generate the content made you 66% more productive. And this is something we are seeing here in Australia and in other firms across Baker Tilly. If you prompt the model in the right way and you really learn how to write your prompts based on the context and the subject matter expertise, this is one area where we're seeing really great gains, and that is just generating content, whether it be a report for a client, a policy or a procedure, or some research. These tools are fantastic at helping you be more productive at generating content. Probably no surprise, again, we're finding that many of our younger generation have far greater familiarity with tools. And what I'm encouraging a lot of firms to do is to focus their awareness and lifting their AI literacy, often with the more senior members of staff and team leaders and managers as well. And then a whole lot of more report that basically says 75% of everyone on this call is using AI either personally or professionally, and I'd be surprised if that number is not already a lot higher today than it was when this research came out. So the proposition I have based on this research is we wouldn't be seeing all of this use and growth in the use of AI if people did not find value in it. And that value is generally about helping all of you be more efficient and more effective in your role, and to allow and to put you in a position where you know how to use these tools so that you are guiding and coaching and driving and using your experience and your intellect and your skills combined with these tools to get a great outcome for clients. And that's what we're seeing, and that's where we expect the value to be driven. So a lot of what we do in the AI and automation focus group is helping firms get ready for AI. I'm not going to spend too long on this, but what we really encourage firms to do is to look at AI readiness across these 6 dimensions. And on the Baker Tilly intranet site called Billy, we have a whole lot of guides to help firms, and one of those is an AI readiness guide. We also have a AI policy guideline. We have other materials on how to get ready, general knowledge, and last week a great guide on how to adopt Copilot with an AI generated podcast. But I guess what I wanted to touch on here in terms of this slide, it's important that every firm has a policy, and I'm sure you have one or are working on one. Data management and governance, I'm going to come back to. I've got another slide on that. But what I encourage all firms to do is really focus on lifting awareness of the role AI can play and will play in our firm and our professional services. And I guess it's partly why I'm here today, is to talk to you about AI, because I think it's really important we all get to know AI better, build our capability and understanding of where it's going. So there's less hesitation maybe and more excitement about adopting AI. And for me, what that's going to do is going to lead to empowering people to experiment and learn more. And tools like Copilot and ChatGPT are a great way to get familiar with how generative AI works and allow you to conduct your own personal experiments and learn how these tools work. Now, coming back to the policy, it's important we have one so that when we do the experimentation and learning, we're doing that within the guidelines that protect our firm and our clients' data. And then what we find is we build the awareness, we do some experimentation and learning, and then we find some really great opportunities, and we then look at how we can really embed those practices and train staff, and it's a bit of a circle there. And the black quadrant here is something that I'm really encouraging leaders and partners to do, is now when you're looking at your business strategy, have to think about AI, technology and automation and what role it's going to play as an enabler in that strategy. So that's sort of some of the work we've done around helping firms think about how they might adopt AI, and specifically on data management, governance and security. AI is empowered by data, your client's data, whatever it might be. So it is really, really important that we understand the data that's available and we have the appropriate governance and security around this. It's really important. However, what we are finding is some firms are a little bit paralyzed because they're worried that the data isn't 100% perfectly secured. Now, don't get me wrong, security is critically important, but if you approach the use of AI in an iterative fashion with your policy, with an appreciation for the importance of data governance and security, then I think you can start. It's just really important to understand where you're at with your data governance and security and approach it in an informed way. And there's a great article that I've got up on the screen here from a UK consultancy that is really just supporting that point, in that data fuels AI, but it doesn't mean you need to stop everything until your data is pristine. You just need to be very conscious about where your data is and what is the quality. But rubbish data going into AI is going to give you a rubbish outcome. So it is critically important. So AI is complex, and in the next couple of slides, I'm going to give you some ideas on where to start and how to start. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about what's happening across the network. I always like to start with this bit of research. So this is some research from the World Economic Forum Future of Jobs report from 2025. And essentially looking at what are the core skills that are going to be required in 2030. And right at the top right of the quadrant is AI, big data, and technological literacy. So again, it's fantastic that we're here today talking about AI, because the more we talk about it, the more we get comfortable more, the more we're preparing ourselves and the future generation of our workforce to be comfortable with the technological changes that will be coming. And right now, it's AI and agents and automation. But it is just one of many technologies that has come in the past and will likely come again in the future. And the more we're prepared and understanding of these technologies, the more we're going to be prepared for the future, and appreciating that this research believes that this is going to be very, very important for the future of skills in 2030. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't believe that in the near or medium or necessarily long term, our profession is in danger of being taken over by AI. I don't believe that's true. I think just AI is going to be a fantastic tool that is going to support all of us in doing our roles and providing great outcomes for our clients. So I really can't understate it enough that I think raising the awareness, talking about AI and technology, given all of these predictions and what we're seeing, is going to be invaluable for you personally and professionally into the future. So how do we start? And we're doing this today, raising the general awareness of AI in our industry and across our network. Conversations like this and presentations like this are happening across the Baker Tilly network all the time. I have colleagues in our focus group that I know are doing very similar presentations because we share our packs and we share our collateral. And there isn't a Baker Tilly meeting that happens at all anymore that doesn't talk about AI and automation in some regard. And we actually had the Baker Tilly town halls yesterday. And obviously for the one in my time zone, I was talking, and the other one, it was Deepak from our Canadian firm. So very, very excited to see that there's a lot of work going on across the network to raise the awareness and start getting buy-in. And in 2 weeks, we have a global technology conference in Barcelona, and nearly half the conference is going to be dedicated and focused on AI. AI and cybersecurity go together nicely. So that's the core of what we're talking about. As I said at the start, I'm doing a lot of discussions with leaders, with partners, and trying to get them comfortable in talking about AI in the future that embraces AI. If the research says that the more junior millennials and staff coming out of university and colleges are more AI ready, then maybe what's going to be holding our firms back is our leadership's understanding of what AI can do. So again, really focusing on getting partnership buy-in and sponsorship, and getting our leaders and managers really comfortable with talking about a AI future, and being open to some ideas that come from the more junior staff or the more younger staff who are ready and have embraced AI. So trying to get that culture aligned to what that future might look like. And then I think if we do all of those, then we're naturally going to be encouraging idea generation for AI and automation, because we might find that people who have some experience and come up with these great ideas will now be able to take that to staff that are more responsive to understanding why we're having these conversations and why we want to invest and consider these ideas. I have a saying that AI is a solution looking for a problem. It's a great technology, but actually where we get value from AI is when we mirror that with a great business idea that is going to provide value to our staff and our clients. And really that's what I'm trying to say here is raise the awareness, be comfortable talking about it, and then we're going to find those great problems that AI is a solution for. And I said this before, and I tend to harp on this quite a bit. For me, the great way to do this is look at how we can encourage experimentation. And Copilot, ChatGPT, it's just a really great way to get comfortable and get started and to experiment. We have, in Pitch Partners, we have built a few chatbots and a few agents, and they all started with us doing experiments with Copilot. And we took little experiments and we tried stuff, and now we subsequently built them together into more of an automated agent and chatbot. So really great way to raise awareness, build familiarity with the tools, and generate ideas and test them. So that's really one way that we really encourage firms to think about starting on their AI and digital journey. So if I bring it back now to the three categories that I talked about at the start, line of business applications, we're starting to see more and more vendors talk about this. And really, if I'm being a bit cynical, you can't be a software vendor and not be talking about AI. So what that means is we're seeing some vendors bring AI to market a little bit prematurely, and it hasn't been fantastic. But there's other vendors that are doing a really good job. What I encourage firms to do is, if your vendors are bringing AI to your solutions, or there's new line of business applications that have AI, absolutely we should be looking at that. But we just don't want to get carried away by the hype or the sales pitch. And like any new technology, we need to be very clear and cover off things like security, confidentiality, data sovereignty, anything else you might have from a compliance and reporting point of view. But we're going to see more and more really great solutions embedded in our line of business applications in the future. I'm very, very confident of that. And I think it's a great opportunity for firms to embrace AI through line of business applications. Custom AI, machine learning and automation solutions. A number of firms in the Baker Tilly network started investing in custom solutions probably the first 2 years ago to 18 months ago. And they are well ahead of all of us in terms of their uplift in understanding of AI. Unfortunately, being first out of the gate back then, it was quite an expensive process. What's really good these days is that the marketplace for tools that allow you to experiment in building agents and to do machine learning and to build chatbots, it's a great time because there are some fantastic open source tools and technologies that make it much, much easier to build proof of concepts and to build pilots for these in AI agents and automations. Now, you generally still need some technical capability, but it's much, much easier than it used to be, which is really, really fantastic when it comes to experimenting and finding these ideas for innovative solutions. One of the things we need to be careful of, and this will change, but particularly here in Australia, and I would assume it's likely in India as well, is the external market of experts in this area has been pretty lean, and we're finding that there is lots of people telling us that they're experts, but finding those experts has been a little bit challenging. So something to look out for. And for us, we work off the Microsoft platform and Microsoft stack. So fortunately for us, Microsoft has some really fantastic blueprints to get started, built-in security, and lots of guides that are helping us. And we are playing with open source tools such as Ollama, OpenWebUI, and N8N are just some of those that we're playing with on top of Microsoft Copilot, Copilot agents, and Copilot Studio. So really interesting. I'll talk a little bit more what the other firms are doing in some later slides. And then Copilots, as I said, we've recently published a Copilot adoption guide on Billy. It's called the Copilot Adoption Guide, but it doesn't matter whether you're rolling out ChatGPT Enterprise or ChatGPT Teams or Copilot. Really, it's a guide based on the experience of half a dozen firms that have had a really successful rollout of Copilot. And I say that because there's probably half a dozen or more firms I've seen that have had an unsuccessful rollout of Copilot. And really, we built this guide to try and give you input and feedback around a couple of key things that we believe will make a big difference in rolling out these tools. And this is what we found. So if and when you are embracing Copilot or ChatGPT, the number one thing that we're finding is one of the biggest factors in with the success of the deployment is managing people's expectations. So a lot of people we find get given these tools and really either ask the tool to do something that it's not capable of, or have a view that it's going to completely transform or revolutionize their life by taking action and doing all these things. And often then it fails and they go, well, this tool is rubbish, it doesn't work very well. So managing the expectations of what Copilot and ChatGPT does, we found from firms that have done it successfully is really important. And in short, the way I talk to this is to say that Copilot is very good at searching for things and doing research. It's really, really great at researching and understanding content that you can provide it. It's really great at summarizing content. And our partners here use this extensively. We get clients sharing 70-page documents or extensive reports and asking our partners to review these. And we're starting to get a practice where our partners put it into Copilot, ask it to summarize it, and then interrogate the document through Copilot to guide where they need to focus their reading. And that's saving them an enormous amount of time. So searching and summarizing are really great use cases, but they're quite niche. And as I alluded to in that other study, generating content, this is where we're seeing probably the biggest impact in our firm, is the ability for Copilot to generate reports based on research, based on feedback, based on whatever it might be, but its ability to, through iterative question and answer with Copilot, really fast-tracking the generation of large amounts of content, and then helping with the review and fine-tuning of that content has been fantastic. So when you're thinking about Copilot or ChatGPT, really think about it's great at searching, summarizing, and generating content. At this stage, it's not really good at taking action. It can't book things in for you and so on. That might be coming, and there is personal Copilot technologies that can interact with web pages and so on. But right now, in our profession, we're seeing the benefit: search and research, summarize and generate. Now, as I alluded to, what we're finding is that how you prompt these tools is really, really critical to maximize the value. And without going into a full Copilot prompt training session that I do run regularly here at Pitcher Partners, the key tip I would give you for how to prompt Copilot, in fact, I'll give you my 4 tips very quickly. Whenever you're prompting Copilot, the first thing you should tell it is to act as an expert in whatever you're asking it. So if you're asking a question about researching some tax legislation, act as an expert in tax legislation within the Indian market or whatever market you're working in. What I then generally say is ask it its question. And it might be, I'm interested in R&D tax credits in this legislation. So you can ask your question, but where you want to spend most of your time is giving it context. So why are you asking the question? I'm asking it for a client. Okay, well, what industry is your client in? How big is your client? Why are you asking this question? What jurisdictions is it about? So give it lots and lots of context, particularly if you're generating content or searching. And sometimes that context can be paragraphs or half a page of information. And then finally, my tip is always in the prompt, what output would you like? Do you want one-page bullet points? Do you want a 30-page research paper? Do you want the tone of the paper to be really plain English? What language do you want it in? Because it can convert languages. Do you want it to be plain English, or do you want it to be quite sophisticated for the audience? So think about telling Copilot the output, format, and form and function, and who the audience for. Anyway, I could go on for hours about prompt training, but they're just some simple tips. And then as you roll out these tools, share the examples across the firm as much as you can. And we're trying to embed a practice here that every time a team has a team meeting, at the start or the end of the meeting, have a 5-minute discussion. What's something new we've learned in Copilot? What's a new use case we've had? And we really just try to encourage this constant sharing and talking and so on. And that one of the problems with Copilot and ChatGPT is remembering to use it. You only get value if you use it. So by sharing examples amongst your teams reminds you to use it. And on the screen is just some examples that we see regularly within our use here at Pitcher Partners. And particularly the financial analysis is a relatively new one through the Copilot Analyst Agent. We're finding that really interesting in its ability to analyze, the previous 3 years profit and loss and looking for variations and so on. Some really great tools in Copilot and ChatGPT to be able to analyze spreadsheets and data now. So I'll leave that with you. That's just a bit of a taste of some of the things that we are doing, and I will talk a bit more about that later. All right, I sort of covered this. When you're going on your AI adoption journey, whether that's personally or professionally or as a firm, there's an old saying, at least in Australia, if you want to eat an elephant, you eat it one bite at a time. And I feel like that's a great analogy for how you go about adopting Copilot. Break it down into your first manageable steps. Raise that awareness, learn to use the tool, experiment with it. And when you're looking at problems for it to solve, try and start with very narrow and specific problems. Copilot and generative AI is generally very good at narrow problems and narrow use cases. And sometimes where people get it unstuck is they think about, well, how can AI solve the problem from A to Z, as opposed to perhaps starting from A to B and then solving C to D. So breaking it down to small chunks generally is a better way to start adopting and learning about how much of a problem you might tackle at any point of time. So it's probably one of my biggest tips I can give you as you go on this journey. Start small, start niche, and start specific, and I think you'll get much better results. So what are we seeing moving forwards? I've already touched on this to some extent, but we're going to see more AI in the line of business applications. Every day we're seeing more models and more powerful large language models, whether that be from OpenAI or Anthropic or Google Gemini or Microsoft or Grok or Mistral in France or DeepSeek from China or Qwen. I could go on and on and on. It's fantastic that there's this competition at the moment to build these great models. And the technology behind building these models is getting smarter as well. So we do expect to see more features. And again, the more we can start to understand where we're at today, will help prepare us for what's coming in the future. And we're just going to see more and more software vendors and suppliers presenting as AI experts. And this comes with a little bit of a warning. The hype is creating a whole lot of so-called experts in the market. So like any technology, it's really important we're very clear about what we're looking for and who we're dealing with. So, the pace of change in AI is rapid. It's going to remain rapid for the time being. So I really encourage you to learn about these tools, learn about AI, and prepare yourself to help the firm, help our clients, but also prepare yourself and your families for this future that's going to see more AI technology as assisting and helping you. So I now want to talk to you a little bit about what we're seeing as just a subset of what has been delivered. And my animation isn't fantastic, but that's okay. The Australian flag came early. So these are just some of the examples of what we're seeing across the Baker Tilly network in actual tangible AI solution delivery. So Canada, actually Baker Tilly Canada is doing some really interesting work, but Canada and the Netherlands are both in the process of doing some proof of concepts of custom AI models that are helping with automated journal entry testing in audit. They've actually got quite a few controls that they're testing and controls through audit that they're looking at AI. And the Canadian firm is really, really happy to share what they're doing in that space. As you can see there, they're also doing some work in tax paper generation and in a corporate finance mergers and acquisitions around due diligence report generation. And that's something we're looking at here in Australia as well. Baker Tilly Singapore doing some interesting work around call center analysis. Baker Tilly China are doing more than anyone in the firm, in the network. Some of the technologies perhaps may not be as transferable to the rest of us, but it's extraordinary how much they are doing. And again, the firm there is very happy to share what they're doing. They don't have access to Microsoft Copilot in China, but they've actually built their own Copilot, which is looks very, very amazing. So extraordinary the work they're doing. They've invested a lot of money. They have some slightly different use cases, and from what I understand, a lot of the processes of the services they provide are very repeatable, which makes it a really great candidate. Baker Tilly Dominican Republic, there's an amazing gentleman in the DR called Vladimir, and he has built tens of solutions, both client-facing and internal, across AI and automation, including vision AI, using cameras and all sorts of amazing technology. So I think this is a really great example because Vladimir has a very small team, but he's got access to some really cool technologies. And because he's very agile, some really great examples. And again, he's more than happy to talk to anyone about what he's doing. Many firms, and this is where a lot of the investment was a couple of years ago, has been investing in chatbots and agents that do tax research. And I'll show you a little bit about what we're doing in Melbourne, but this is a really classic use case. Take legislation, precedents, rulings from the tax providers and build that into a knowledge-based chatbot. We're seeing quite a lot of activity in this space. And then you've got firms like Poland. I'm not sure if at ASA you use Data Snipper. I'm assuming you do. Most firms do use Data Snipper, but Baker Tilly Poland have built their own Data Snipper alternative, which we've had a look at, and they're making available to the Baker Tilly network. But really interesting that they've invested some work in AI to work in that space as well. Now, this is growing every day. So this is just a subset of some of the firms that part of the reason I put these up, because I know the majority of these firms are happy to talk to anyone and share what they're doing. Now, to bring it close to home, what we're doing here is we're predominantly focusing on what we call chat with your documents, and that's what the CWYD means. Chatbots that are grounded in documents that we've curated and defined. And we've got quite a few in the tax area. We've probably got half a dozen or so that we're working on, with 2 that are actually formally in production and being used by our tax team. And these are focused on different parts of the tax legislation in Australia. We're also looking at building those into agents that we can call from other business processes. And we're doing a few experiments now with AI workflow. And I'll give you an example of one of those in a moment. And we've just built out some machine learning capability that we're about to play with based on general ledger transactions from zero files is what we're looking at there. This is the tax ones. You know, there's not much to show you because at the end of the day, we've taken legislation and curated documents and we ask questions. And we've partnered with the tax team and we've spent many, many months fine-tuning the prompts and how we talk to them, but not complex in terms of the technology. But what was complicated was the iteration and fine-tuning how to ask it the question and what we call the system prompt. But we're really happy with how that's working. And then this one is a Microsoft Power Platform app where we're in the experimental phase now, but here we ingest invoices and we codify invoices within our wealth management and pass that through to an approval process. So again, not very complicated, very narrow and niche, but actually is going to save our firm an enormous amount of time. So just touched on some of the experiments we're doing. There's lots of work going across the Baker Tilly network. So, you know, when I go back and think about my career where I started with no email, started with no spreadsheets, AI is just another technology. It is far more hyped perhaps than many of the others. It is going to have a legacy and I believe it is here to stay. I believe, and I could be wrong, but I think this is going to be evolutionary, not revolutionary. And I really encourage you to be open-minded, embrace AI as a partner that you can bring your expertise and leverage a tool that's going to take away a lot of the noise and administration and some of the monotony in your work, but you are in control and you are the pilot of these tools. And I'm really excited to see what you and the broader Baker Tilly network is going to be able to do with this amazing new technology called artificial intelligence. That's my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it. Kim, if we've got time, I'm happy to take questions or how you want to do that.
And thank you so much. That was a lovely session. Shri, I think we've got a few questions that have come in.
Yes, we do have. Thank you, Brett, for sharing your insights on AI, how we can embrace, how we can use AI internally, how AI can stream our workflows in day-to-day office life, and even how we can save time using AI, right? Which is a key. Ensuring there are ethical considerations for implementing AI and data security, data privacy still remains a key. The best thing which I liked personally was knowledge sharing and using AI at least 30 minutes a day so that discussing it internally on which models works best, right? And how time can be saved and used somewhere else in a better manner. So thank you very much. There are a few questions which we have. The first is, we internally or we heard about autonomous AI because, like I said, AI is being used since 1960s. So we heard about autonomous AI, then followed by advancements in robotics. Today, the spotlight is on generative AI, where even Microsoft actually made their best quarter profits, and even OpenAI, where there were 100 million subscribers in just 3 months. There is a new buzz going around, which is artificial generative intelligence, right? So can you throw some light on this, please?
There's a lot of talk about AGI, and when will we get there? Are we already there? Is it even achievable? My answer to this is I don't know, and maybe. I also, this might sound a bit weird, but I don't really care. The reason being is I don't know where AI is going to go, and it could get a lot smarter, and maybe it'll get smarter than humans. But at the end of the day, generative AI is still just a tool that I believe needs humans to get value from, right? yes, we can use AI to automate tasks, but it can't automate subjective thinking. It can't automate the human curiosity of challenging things. It can't look a client in the eye and go, I know you're saying this, but I think you mean this, and really have that conversation about business problems. And at this stage, AI is very good, and what you can automate is very small, discrete tasks. It cannot automate an end-to-end task by itself. So AGI is really a concept that means AI is smarter than humans, like it's superseded us. And I'm sort of like, okay, that's great. I don't think it changes our approach to how we use it and what we're going to use it for. It just means it might be quicker and more effective at those narrow problems that we solve at it. That's my view and take on it. It's moving fast. It's changing. I don't know if anybody actually knows, but that's the way I like to look at it.
Perfect. Thanks, Brett. Brett, if you can please stop sharing the screen so that people can view as well.
There we go.
Thanks.
No problems.
Perfect. Now, from an Indian context, what tasks for chartered accountants are more or most likely to be automated by AI in next couple of years, and what are the new opportunities in advisory role that will emerge as a result of it?
Yeah, it's a really great question, and again, I guess I'll give you my thoughts on what we're seeing here at Pitcher Partners. Where we're exploring AI for automation in our corporate finance team, when we're working on a buy or a sale, and we're doing a due diligence, we have a workbook where we incorporate different versions of financial statements, and we standardize that for analysis. And we also do that with trial balances in our working papers. We think AI is going to be a really great tool for automating the transfer of data from a unstructured format to a structured format. Like that for years has been challenging because we get files from all different accounting tools and we have to normalize that. I think AI is going to be really great at doing that, and we're starting to see some benefit in that. I think research is the other area. I think AI is very good and powerful at doing research, but it is not perfect, and the research has to be guided by an expert. So I think it's going to really streamline and speed up research. And I think this is an opportunity for more junior staff too, because often junior staff get tasked with doing research the old-fashioned way. Now, if we can get more junior staff using AI to help with the research, that's going to help them sort of lift up the value curve in terms of not only doing research, but starting to understand the value of the research and why and what we're doing. So I think there's value in there. I think there is potentially some very basic bookkeeping that might be automated by AI, but I still think we need bookkeepers, because there is controls that are required in that process that I think we're a long way from trusting to AI. So I think there's lots of examples where AI, again, I think what I'm saying to you through my presentation now, AI is good at niche small things that are governed by human experience. So I think that's where we're going to see it now and in the future. I think in the future, I just think it's probably an extension of those concepts moving forward. As you saw, Canada is looking at AI for journal entry testing, like, in audit, rather than sampling for testing. Maybe we can test everything and therefore get a better outcome for our client. AI is going to help with that. So in that scenario, it may not be saving us time. It might purely be getting a better outcome for the client. So I think the idea of AI can have productivity. It can also just provide better outcomes. It can help you be more prepared. It can give you more insight. And I think we shouldn't devalue one over the other. It's not all about productivity. It's about value add as well.
Thanks. Thanks, Brett. We have one more question. Beyond automation, how can AI enhance strategic value consultants can provide to their clients? particularly in small and medium enterprises within India? And can you give some practical example of how AI-powered insights can transform financial forecasting or cash flow management for a typical Indian small business houses?
I'll do my best. I'm not an accountant, so that the last part of that question I probably shouldn't answer. It's a difficult one for me to answer in principle because I'm not an accountant and I'm not in that roles. So from a strategic point of view, I would say that strategically, it's about thinking about how AI can be leveraged as a tool set to add value to your staff and the service they provide to clients. So whenever I talk to partners about business strategy, I don't believe that an AI or technology strategy should be a standalone strategy. It's just part of how we do business now. So thinking about it in the context of AI being a almost mandatory tool, I shouldn't be thinking about doing work if I'm not thinking about leveraging AI and technology, is probably where I bring it into that strategic mindset. Now, how we apply that in a context of an Indian capability for a small firm, I don't know, because it's that technology that can do whatever you want. It's about how you think about how you apply that. And I guess to some extent on the last part of the question, we are seeing AI get better at analyzing financial statements. And I think with human guidance, we will see more effective and more efficient analysis of financial reporting and statement. But again, with guidance, because as you would all know, you might do some journal entry testing, whatever it might be, and AI will find an anomaly, but actually there's nothing wrong. It's just statistically an anomaly. So I think it's going to be used more for that, and it will help find more things, but it still needs the human judgment to provide the value to the client.
Sure.
I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, it was useful. We have one more question. We may take it since we have a couple of minutes left. It is globally, every country has their own regulations. Data security, data confidentiality still remains paramount. Can you throw some key ethical and compliance challenges that we need to be aware while implementing AI tools, especially with sensitive client data?
100%. And this is why I always recommend firms start with an AI policy that clearly articulates and understands your local regulation or legislation as it relates to data, and predominantly data, although there is legislation in Europe and in other countries now around the use of AI. So in Europe specifically, you're not allowed to use AI to profile people, for example, which I think is very, very smart. So for us in Australia, in our experience, our AI policy is very much focused on the data aspect. So we will not put our data into any platform that is not secured within our environment. And even then, if it's highly sensitive, we only do that with partner approval if it's appropriate. To do that, we need to understand the AI tools we're using and make sure the vendors are very, very clear about where is the model based, what do they do with the data, how do they transfer the prompt to their model and back again if it's in another country, is it encrypted? Do they use that to train their model? Or what's more scary from a data point of view is if you use a public model like ChatGPT or Perplexity, or those companies record every single prompt and every response. So if you're putting in your personal information, they're keeping all of that to train and learn. From a professional services firm, and what we have here at Pitcher Partners, we've constrained our use to the Microsoft ecosystem, where we have an agreement with Microsoft where we use their enterprise data protection, and we will not use anything with our data outside of that arrangement. So understand the legislation requirements. And then the only thing I would add to that is be really cognizant of what are your client's expectations. Even if the law says you can do this, do your clients think that would be an appropriate thing to use it for? And then equally for your staff, like make sure our staff understand what we're using it and why, and that it's legal, ethical, or otherwise. And again, with these professional models, they have really good guardrails around ethics and biases as well, which is something we need to be worried about in the future. We've already seen bias in models from different countries. We need to be conscious of that.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Brett.
No problems. Pleasure.
Thanks so much, Brett. That was wonderful. And thank you so much for the insights on what the other member firms are doing and practically a lot of what's being worked on in AI. Thank you so much for your time and for coordinating with us over the last couple of months where we put this together.
No problem.
So thanks, everyone. We had a really good, enthusiastic session. The next session is going to be on Southeast Asia. In November, we'll be circulating the dates in a little while. So thank you once again, Brett. Have a great day. What's left of it?